Alrighty, welcome to the fourth edition of Beyond Combat. My name is Nick Baldwin, and joining me here on the program is a mixed martial arts fighter. He's based out of Sacramento, California's Team Alpha Male. It is Adam Corrigan. Adam, really appreciate you coming by.
Thanks, mate. Good to be back. Good to be in a little while.
Yes, it has been. For anybody that doesn't maybe remember or never saw it, we actually did an interview. It was back in July of last year, so I don't know if I've talked to you since then. I maybe have, but that was the last time we talked interview-wise. So yes, it has been a while. We're both 1 year wiser, I hope. How's your 2017?
A little bit more punch drunk. Mate, it's been good. It's been a roller coaster, but it's been educational, and yeah, I'm enjoying it. It's coming to a close, but a lot of things that have happened, a lot of changes. Obviously, we moved gyms, we moved. Not too far away, but down the road, but a new big facility that I'm managing for Uriah. I'm managing parts of it, just the fitness, the personal training, all the classes and stuff like that. And then, that's been good. I've been training like on and off. I haven't been training too hard. I had a bad neck, not a bad neck injury, just one of those injuries that doesn't go away. And I was just like, well, let's stop grappling and wrestling because that's what's causing it. Just did a little bit of boxing and stuff like that. And no fights this year. This year's not over yet, but highly doubtful I get anything on the cards before the end of the year.
Well, that's been an issue for you, because if people look at your record, you haven't fought since the summer of 2015. I think it was either August 2015 or September, right around there.
Yeah, my last fight was against Dwight Grant from AKA, real nice guy, great fighter as well. I think he's like 7-0 or 8-0 or 8-1 or something like that. He's pretty sharp, and he's a hell of a nice guy. Last fight was against him. We had a close one. I think he got me at the end with a nice takedown and some top control. But I didn't fight my best. I was training probably in the wrong area with a little bit more grappling and wrestling. I should have been focusing a bit more on my striking. But those are the mistakes you make. But yeah, I haven't fought for a while since then. And then, like I said, I had a kind of a neck problem that was just annoying me. And I'd fought 3 times that year. I was probably looking to do a little bit more Muay Thai. But it's just fights. Sometimes it's just difficult. My Muay Thai is a lot better than my MMA, so I have to fight higher caliber guys. And I think the last guy I fought was in the WCK rankings as like a top 5 guy, and I beat him. But I don't know where you go from there. It wasn't a great performance. It was kind of like, a little point fighted him as opposed to went for the kill. But
right, yeah, I mean, fighters love fighting, and I'm sure that goes for you too. But it's like, I think, I mean, I can't say this for sure just because I've never stepped inside the cage, but it's like, it feels like not fighting and not having to take a punch isn't the worst decision you can make in the world.
No, I don't like getting punched. And it's funny, I said to the guy said to me afterwards in change, he goes, "Man, you're hard to hit." And I just go, "I don't like getting hit. It's something I don't enjoy. I do enjoy being sore and beat up kind of in a way." But
right.
And he actually, there's a great photo of him cracking me right in the face with a nice right hand. And you don't really feel them during the fight, and your lips are a little bit numb the next day. But, it's I was telling this to one of my training partners, fighting is a small part of your life, and you just got to enjoy it. I'll continue to fight if something comes up, if something's good, but I'm happy even if it doesn't. I'm kind of complete with my career, and I think about things like, I'm only 34 and I feel beat up, but when Taekwondo since I was 14, and I've been on national teams since I was 16. Fighting at the highest level. So you take all that, like I missed a lot of school. I was training full time. So that kind of your body, especially my ankles and my feet. So
well, anyways, so for anybody listening, maybe for the first time, considering this podcast is rather new, this is only episode 4. Beyond Combat, I like to say it's a show that brings together mixed martial arts and the outside world. We've already talked a bit too much MMA for my liking, because I do so many other MMA podcasts and I write about MMA all the time. This is actually a nice break for me just not to talk about MMA. So on the show on Beyond Combat, I bring on MMA personalities, whether it's fighters, journalists, maybe even a fan, and talk about outside things they like to do, whether it's a hobby, a career, or some interesting aspect of their life. And the reason I'm having you on, and I think this is going to be a fun conversation, perhaps a funny one, who knows, you on the side, you do a bit of stand-up comedy. So
Yeah.
what, go for it.
Yeah. So, I mean, let's go back to when I was in high school. I was in South Africa, and I got asked to host a talent show at our school. I was 17, probably 16, 17 at the time. And the teachers do a gig at the end, but they were all drunk. So they said, hey, go tell some jokes for a second. So I went out and just made fun of a few friends. And then the next year they asked me to do the same thing. And I basically roasted a few of my schoolmates, which was pretty fun, and told some jokes. And that was the last time I did it. But my auntie, she's a comedian and has her own show in San Diego. So I went down and she goes, hey, why don't you do 5 minutes? Your mom's going to be there. My uncle is going to be there. So I go, all right, cool, I do it. This is the funny part. So a friend of mine, and he thought I was going to suck so badly. He was actually in San Diego that weekend, and so was Danny Castillo. And so Danny texted me and he said, hey, I'm coming to your show tonight. Now, if you don't know Danny, if you screw up in front of Danny, he will let you know about it for the rest of your life. So anyway, me and Castillo get along great, but he came down to the show, and the show went fine. It went good. The jokes were funny. And my mate, who thought I wasn't going to be funny, who only went for moral support afterwards because he thought I was going to bomb, was like, I didn't think those jokes were that funny, but you deliver it differently. I go, of course, I'm not going to, read the script. I'm not going to act out the script of a movie. I'm going to read the script, So anyway, it was pretty good. So I've done 4 shows since then. I really enjoy it. It's good fun. It kind of gives you that same feel of fighting. You get a little anxious, get a little nervous beforehand, and then you got to go out and perform. And that's the enjoyment of it. I like it.
When was that first show? Because I know you went from high school, you're just doing stuff in class, and then you hop sort of to your first show. Was there a big gap, or was that actually pretty close to get? Like when did those all start?
So school was like in 2000 or 99. I did that.
Okay.
99, 2000, and the last one was this year, May. This year, May, I did the first one.
Okay, so you went from always being a funny guy to taking it one step further and letting other people in on that.
Well, I feel like I kind of lost my humor once I moved to America because everything was kind of serious, and I was always a class clown. I was always
Sure.
a class clown, and I would say some funny things, and people wouldn't laugh here, and I just go, man, maybe the sense of humor is a little different, and it is. It is different in America. Everything in Australia and the UK is very, very sarcastic, and so I live with Tuss, who she's Australian, and we can sit at home and make fun of everyone on the team. And we'd probably get in fights with them, like physical fights, because that's just the way it is in America. It's kind of funny. Whereas in Australia, you just make fun of each other till you're all in stitches and you move on.
Yeah, something I've always found interesting about you is the fact that you were born in Australia, you've lived in South Africa, you've lived in the UK, and now you live in California in the United States. Firstly, explain how that all happened, how you went from Australia to either South Africa and then UK and then found your way to the US. And then as far as the comedy goes, do you almost use that? Like, I feel like you're a man full of stories just because you've lived in so many places, so many different continents, where how could you not have different things to tell?
Yeah, it's almost like I've had multiple different lives. I was actually born. So my mum and dad are Australian, but they were traveling in the UK, and I was born in London, in England. And then my dad just worked all over the world. So I went from London. Here's a long story, not long, but it's a long depth of it. London, left when I was 3, moved to Houston, Texas, until I was 6. Moved to Bedford, New York. Right, so I was there for 5 years. At 11, I accidentally burnt my house down. True story, but accident, so don't blame it on me. Because we had no house and whatever, my dad goes, let's move back to Australia. So we moved back to Australia, I think in 94, and then lived there until the end of 98. My dad was involved in a business there. Lived there the last 3 years of high school. And I South Africa's a beautiful country, and yeah, it has its problems. And I was there 4 years after apartheid, so it was a rough place to live. But beautiful people, and I miss it a lot. But I just didn't see a future. You couldn't really work or make a living unless you're involved in a family business. So I just thought, well, let's move back to Australia. I'll play some at the time. And Anyway, moved back to Australia, played a season of rugby in Queensland, which is on the East Coast. Moved back to Perth, where I'm from, where all my family's from, and just lived there for 5 years. Kind of had enough of that. Moved to England for 5 years, and then after that, moved to Sacramento. Currently, been here 7 years, longest I've ever lived anywhere.
I got to ask you, how did you burn your house down?
Don't play with matches, kids. No, we'd been to Manhattan, and it was 3 days after Christmas, which really pissed me off because I got a brand new pair of boxing gloves for Christmas. But my mum asked me to clear out the ash from the fireplace, and we hadn't had a fire for 3 days, so you assume the ashes are going to be cold anyway. Some of the ash might have been still hot. Put it in the bag and put it in the garbage. I woke up, and we lived in a pretty big house. It was a wooden house. I woke up to light, like red flashing light coming through my door. And I walked out and I looked out the window, and the whole garage is on fire. And I was just like, holy shit. So anyway, the next thing was just scrambling to get everyone out of the house. And anyway, no one died. We lost everything. But, you know, the thing I love about America is the community just got around us. And I had better clothes after the house burned down than I had beforehand. You know, I had better stuff. Everyone was buying me the Sega Game Gear and everything like that. It was like a massive Christmas had just shat all over us.
I feel like you take something, losing a whole house is a terrible, but something about how you like talk about it, and it feels like you just take it almost lightly, which isn't a bad thing. But I guess that's why you're a comedian on the side.
Well, mate, bad shit's going to happen your whole life. How you deal with it is the important thing, you know. So a house burned down. It wasn't my dad's house. We were renting it. Is it bad for us? Yeah, we had to move. Is it bad for the guy that owned it? Probably not. He probably got paid out millions from the insurance company. So anyway, and it just, you know, things in life like that. So I always think, if that house hadn't burned down, where would I be now? Probably would have stayed in the States for a little bit longer. Who knows, you know? So it's funny the way those big things happen that cause your life to turn around and end up in a completely different country.
Yeah, I feel like if you take everything so seriously and sit on everything and sort of just sit there and moan and grieve, you're not going to have a great life.
Yeah, 100%.
So as far as the comedy stuff goes, so you did your first show earlier this year. You've done a few since then. What's the challenge? What are the challenges? Like, I mean, you're a pro fighter. You fought 4 times professionally, and you've done a bunch of other Muay Thai bouts. And so, I mean, it's certainly not something. I mean, it's both two things. Both of them are two things that not too many people get a chance to do, or even would want to do. Like, yeah, I would imagine the first show was nerve-wracking to get in front of a crowd and you need to make them laugh. That's your one goal at the end of the day. Have fun, but you need to make them laugh.
Yeah, and like I said, I had Danny Castillo sitting front row,
right,
watching me. So I think the main thing, and it was funny because I had a joke based on my brother, but if Castillo was giving me hassle, I was going to base it on him. So I could have flipped it on him, but I didn't. He was awesome. He was awesome to have there, and we had a good laugh and a couple of drinks afterwards. So it's funny because in comedy, I just didn't want to screw up and forget where I was or screw up any jokes, which I didn't. I think I lost my way a little bit, but I looked at my phone, and it's forgivable. It's forgivable if you do that. And then the next couple of shows went the same way. Cynthia Cavillo came to one in San Diego. We all hung out. Me, Cynthia, and Tuss, we all hung out. And I roasted her a little bit, which was fun. And then the next one I did, so the last one I did last weekend, I was doing the delivery, and my grandmother was there, so I was kind of telling stories about my grandma. But they say in comedy you deliver, but in your brain you think about the new stuff of what you want to pull out when it makes sense and stuff like that. And that was the first time where I kind of just went off my script, and I was telling a story that I know anyway because it's my grandma. So now I can just think of funny stuff to put in between, which kind of worked out really well. I didn't really put any major punchlines into it or anything smart funny, but I just want to tell a story and see how that how I could entertain people just through telling a story. And it worked out pretty good, and it was a pretty small crowd, so I was happy with it. And actually tonight I'm going to an improv class with Connie Darren Elkin's wife.
Oh, wow.
She told me about it. She goes to one just for a bit of fun. I said, oh, cool, I'll come with you. So I'm doing that at 7 o'clock tonight.
Awesome. Is that just sort of like a workshop just to, learn from other comedians, or what's that?
I have no idea.
Okay.
I know Connie goes because she's pretty shy and she just wants to get more comfortable with being in front of people and stuff like that. So I told her to come along. And I used to do acting when I was a kid, so I've been to a couple of these workshops and improv things. So I don't mind being in front of people, especially if it's to make them laugh or act like a total dickhead in front of people and they get a kick out of it.
Did you love doing it right from the very beginning? That first show, you walk off stage, were you satisfied? Did you enjoy yourself, or did you take a little, maybe two shows, and then did you start to grow to love it? Because I mean, if you didn't like it, I assume you love it, because if you didn't, you wouldn't keep doing it. But did you love it from the very beginning?
So the very first show I really enjoyed, and then I did one the very next night, and I did the same exact set, and I hated it. I hated I didn't hate doing it. I hated my performance afterwards. Like I'm critical of anything I do, but just 'cause that's the way I am. I've been an athlete my whole life. You critique everything, every mistake you make, everything like that. So I critiqued myself, and I'm like, oh, that sucked. That was completely bad. And I spoke to my uncle who goes to the comedy shows all the time because he's married to a comedian. And he just goes, you were way better the second night. And I just go, and he just goes, well, you just were more relaxed. The jokes came more fluently. I didn't do as long as I usually do. I forgot a few jokes, so I've kind of lost my place. That's what I was critiquing, but the way I delivered it was pretty good, and I got a good laugh. So once you said that I did better the second time, but I do critique myself, and then I'm looking always at ways to improve. So it's kind of a cool thing to jump into after fighting, because fighting is a difficult thing to do, and so is comedy. And I'm always going to critique myself and think of ways to get better. So they kind of, if I do retire into comedy, it's a good challenge, and it's something I can do without getting punched in the face.
In general, are you a guy who gets nervous, before an MMA fight, before, comedy, before anything? Might, some people might get nervous. Or are you a guy? I feel like maybe you're not, but I don't know, you've surprised in other
No,
situations.
I'm pretty relaxed with fighting. I actually had Vinny Murdoch corner me one time in a Muay Thai fight, and he goes, I think you're like the most relaxed. It's like you're going out for a cup of tea, but you're going out to fight, So I always kind of thought, and I worked with a really good sports psychologist when I was in the British Olympic team. And you kind of know how the brain works, and you're going to get nervous, but you don't need the nerves aren't going to help you. You've done all the preparation. And in fighting, it's easy. It's like, if you keep the distance, if you don't attack from too far away, if you don't do this, there's nothing really bad's going to happen. So if I can keep my mentality like that, and I do all the preparation, so I shouldn't really get nervous. And I just, you get to the point of fight night where you go out and have to perform and execute. I think I get nervous, and I always used to do this through Taekwondo, is 3 weeks before I do all my visualization in my head, where before bed I would, visualize parts of the fight or where it might go and what I should do. And I would get nervous in that. My heart rate would go up a lot because I'm actually in that zone where I'm thinking about things, and I'm nervous when I'm sleeping, and then I'll eventually go to sleep. I'll probably do this visualization for about 30 minutes to an hour. But come fight time, I've been through all those situations in my head, so I really don't need to stress too much about what if this or what if that. And it's the same with comedy. You practice it, and I'm a little bit slack on actually get my routine down the night before, because I travel to San Diego. I totally forget about it. I'm like, and I have to record it on my phone and then listen to it on the plane and stuff like that. So it's kind of drilled into my head. But the way I will do comedy will be my own personal stories that I'll add some good punchlines into.
Why do you have to go to San Diego? Is there just nothing in Sacramento?
No, because I go see my auntie. My auntie and uncle live
Okay.
down there, and the last couple of times I've had my mom there, and my grandmother was there this time. So while I'm down there, I just do like 5 minutes on one of their shows. And there is stuff up here, and I'll hope to get on that soon, but I'll polish up a little bit first.
Before that first show, do you remember sort of what you were expecting? Like, were you going in sort of saying, whatever happens, happens? Were you confident you'd perform well? Were you thinking, hey, this might not go so well? What were you sort of expecting before that first show?
Well, I mean, similar to like fighting is you got to prepare for the worst and expect the best. So I just did my thing, and I just go, what what if nobody laughs? No one finds this funny. You know, I'm comfortable enough. You know, I've done nutrition talks and fitness talks in front of PG&E and a bunch of different companies that I don't mean to be funny, but I can make them laugh and make them relax. So it's funny because I get there and I look at the crowd and I go, how can I entertain this crowd? You know, so at the particular place we're at, it's quite close to Tijuana. So there's a lot of Mexican people there. I mean, Mexican people in California in general, but it's right close to Tijuana. So I threw a couple of good Mexican jokes in there. And it played off pretty well, like everyone. So yeah, I prepare for the worst. And it's funny, my friend who went down to watch me, he was telling me like none of these jokes are funny. So his wife was competing in a CrossFit game. She works with Danny Castillo. Told Danny, you guys need to go to support him because he's going to bomb. He's going to need some friends support, you know? And so that's why they went down, because they didn't think the jokes were funny. And I told him I make my jokes, and I told his wife, and they're just like, they're not funny. No one's going to laugh. And I just go, they'll be funny. Like, I can tell people this with a sense of humor and they're going to laugh. So anyway, everything that I thought was funny was going to be funny. And, but yeah, you got to prepare for like a dud crowd. Like the last weekend I was there wasn't that many people. It was like half the crowd. And my auntie was on before me. She's been doing this for years. And she's actually going to Afghanistan to perform for the troops next year. So she's a decent comedian. Couldn't get the crowd going. I was like, oh shit, I'm on next. And I don't know how this is going to go, but it went well. It went okay.
What do you do? Like, have you, I know you've only done, 4 shows, I think you said it's been, but when a crowd, have you had a situation where a crowd just did not find a joke funny? Maybe you were going in and thinking, hey, this is a pretty good one. Can't wait to crack this. And then, crickets almost, has that happened? And if so, what do you do? Do you just sort of move on as fast as you can? Do you say, hey, guess you didn't find, what sort of, what happens after that?
There was one actually I did this last weekend that I was down there. It was on Louis C.K. Obviously, you've heard about all the stuff going on with all the celebrities. Louis C.K., if you haven't heard, he would ask women if they wanted to come into his room, and he just wanted to masturbate to them. I'm sure he had sex with a bunch of them, but he said in the thing, he rang all the women, apologized, and would basically do it to the young comics that were on the shows. He would ask them if they wanted to come to his room. And then he would just, if they said no, they didn't want to have sex with him, I think he said, well, do you mind if I masturbate? And he would just masturbate. So I hope this is a PG-13 show at least.
I might be I don't know if I'm 13 yet, though.
So I said, the joke was, as a young, someone who's young in the comic life, I wanted to get into that club. Like, what did I have to do to get invited up to his hotel room? And then I said, what if someone like Chelsea Handler had taken advantage of me like that? I would have rung Louis C.K. to see if she was worth it, assuming that Louis C.K. would have taken advantage of her back in the day. But I didn't explain the joke properly, and I didn't think people got it. So when there is no laugh, you either move on or, I haven't said it yet, but I'll just go, I thought there was a joke in there somewhere, but maybe I got that wrong. And that usually makes people realize, you tried for a joke, but you didn't do it properly, or it wasn't a good joke, but you know it, and that's the funny part.
Yeah, sometimes I think owning up to not your mistake, but realizing that something didn't go wrong, like even, doing a presentation, not even completely unrelated to comedy. Sometimes if you mess something up, like I think sort of acknowledging it isn't always a bad idea. Like even, if you're, a singer and you say something wrong, you mess up in the lyrics, it's almost funny to say, oh, shit, I messed that up, blah, 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 instead of just like trying to hide it almost.
Yeah. Yeah. I think if you feel more natural. And I mean, I went and saw Adam Hunter, who I love. Adam Hunter, he's great. And someone on the show, or someone who's from SAC, he was probably the worst. Like, he was crickets. I was watching with Lance Palmer, and we were dying laughing just because of how bad this guy was. And everything was just like, it was just a gross joke. It was always something shit or something this or something that. It was pretty poor humor. And anyway, I was laughing my head off just because he couldn't pull it together. But he was trying. He's like, all right, well, I got another one for you. I got another joke for you. This one's going to be the best. And it'd be like the grossest thing ever that's not funny. So I was cracking up because Lance laughs at anything, and we were just sitting in the back giggling like kids. But it was pretty hard to watch.
Do you throw in some Trump stuff? Do you mix in politics?
I did. I did have a couple good Trump jokes at my very first one, and the one thing was, Trump's doing a good job. He's creating a lot of jobs because he's firing someone every week.
Right.
Was that bit where he was in Israel and he had the yarmulke, and this was down in Tijuana. I said, "How would someone like me wear a yarmulke?" And obviously, a lot of Mexicans there. I said, "You'd wet a little tortilla and pop that on the top of your head." Anyway, they cracked up a lot for that one. That was pretty funny. But I tried to leave politics out of it because once you view that, and this is what I feel, if you got half a room that like Hillary or liked Hillary, and you got half a room that liked Trump, if I support Trump, I lose all the Hillary people, and if I bash Trump, I lose all the Trump people. So then I have to, how do I keep them all? Finding my stuff funny, because once I degrade someone that people might think, to stick with them, they can't say, "Oh yeah, he kind of screwed up," or whatever. And to be honest, Trump's been the best entertainment I've had in a long time. So
yeah, he's a comedian in himself.
Exactly, I like him in the office. It gives me some funny things to think about. But yeah, I think if I do Trump jokes, I don't bash him. I'll just make fun of something that's been in the news recently.
I think that's a good point, because I think some people just thinking of it immediately might say, "Oh, why are you, almost as if you're avoiding to talk about politics because you don't feel it's appropriate or whatever." But I think, like, I was reading an article, and it's kind of funny that I read this because it's kind of related, about late night shows recently. Their numbers. Jimmy Fallon has fallen off. And coincidental, his name has fallen because he hasn't been talking about Trump. I guess, like, he keeps sort of politics out of his monologue and stuff like that, while guys like Jimmy Kimmel and Seth Meyers, as you may know, bash Trump all the time, and their numbers have been going up for that reason, while Fallon's have been going down. But I think you can only do that when you're when you're on national TV, when the scale is that massive, where even if there's 3 million Trump's or Hillary supporters that hate Trump, and that's still good numbers. Where for you're doing it at a little club where there might be, I don't know, what average show, like 200 people, less, 100?
No, way less than that. I mean, the last one I was at was at a brewery, so I did one probably in front of like 40 people. The next one's probably like 50 or 60.
Whereas if you have 25 Trump supporters and 25 Hillary supporters, that's a huge chunk of people. So I think it's sort of okay to eliminate one side when you're on such a big scale, but when you're doing sort of local comedy stuff, maybe not a good idea for what you said.
Yeah, and at the end of the day, I don't like drama. Like I said, I don't like drama, and I want to be on stage to entertain people and come up with some smart things. Like I've always prided myself on kind of my intelligence, and in a way I'm intelligent. Like I was an intelligent athlete, and I was intelligent at coming up with some smart ass jokes. So if I can think of some cool jokes that are funny, but they're not insulting anyone. Like last thing I want to do is insult people. I have people come up to me after a show and say, "I didn't appreciate this. I didn't appreciate that." I know that you have to push the boundaries of things, but and at the end of the day, Trump hasn't done anything to me. There's no reason I should bash him. I mean, there's a handful of things you could bash him for, but I'd like to make fun of Hillary too, but I don't know what I'd say about Hillary. Probably a bunch of things, but I like to leave kind of politics out of it. I'll make light of some things, but I'm not going to get on anyone's side about a lot of people kind of, and I've seen a few comedians voice their political views and this and that, whatever, and you kind of lose interest in it a little bit because I'm not a politics guy.
Sure.
I'm a sports guy or whatever.
I think the one thing where you might be okay though is if you mentioned how you wouldn't want someone coming up to you after a show saying I didn't appreciate it. I think though is that people that are watching your stuff that are at a comedy show, they're at a comedy show. They know not to take everything seriously. They know they probably have a sense of humor in a way themselves. They're probably not super serious people, because super serious people might understand and know, hey, I shouldn't go because I'll just be offended all night. Where I think you might actually, I think if you do have some what could be considered insulting statements, like you can't just go walk down the street and say certain things. But in a comedy club, I think it might be a little different.
Yeah, no, I know what you're saying, and there's some things I've like, should I speak about this? Should I speak about that? In those small enclosed things, like if you're someone like Louis C.K. or Bill Burr, those are your fans that are coming. They're not just random people that showed up to have a drink and you're doing the comedy. So I think if I can entertain people at a smaller level, I kind of just give myself the mentality of like, let's entertain this group of people. If I in the future become an awesome comedian and I just post dates kind of like Joe Rogan does and stuff like that, where it's all his fans show up to the show. You can talk about whatever you want. They're going to support you regardless. So it's like Jim Jeffries, it's funny, an Aussie guy talking about gun control in America, and everyone loves it because it's very accurate. But they're all his fans too, so people aren't really going to say, this and that, whatever. But there are some touchy subjects, and you're going to get people who just want to bitch and moan at you.
Yeah.
I'm sure if I say, talk about chicks, I'm going to have a feminist come up to me after the show and not appreciate things. And it's like,
yeah, I'm sure there's
cool.
people like that even at a comedy club.
Exactly.
How much would your material change if you were doing this, say, in Australia or even UK or South Africa? Like how it has to be. I would imagine it's quite a bit different.
I don't know. I mean, I've never done it. I'd like to travel and do it, but I'm not too sure. I mean, I've seen some really good comedians in Australia, some real good ones in the UK as well, and I think if you just appeal to the audience and you talk about stuff that they're going to know about, or you have something you talk about, like about just the stories of my life or everything like that. As long as I deliver it well and then add some good punchlines in between, I think things will be okay. So I'll have to let you know once I do it. I'll have to when I come to Canada. When I come to Canada, you'll have to set up a gig for me.
I got to. Have you ever pulled a Canada joke? Just because it seems like every American loves making fun of Canada.
Well, my girlfriend's Canadian, so
I guess you don't want to do that then, or maybe you do.
No, I will for sure. Yeah, I think I mean I will, and I've been to Canada enough times. I think I'd have to do the Canada jokes in Canada for them to be really funny. I'd probably just mimic the accent a little bit.
Right. Yeah, and maple syrup and all of that.
Yeah, for sure.
You should come up for Josh Emmett's fight.
Where is that? Oh, Edmonton, isn't it?
No, Winnipeg. That is where I live.
Oh, nice. Damn, yeah. I spoke to Josh yesterday. I'm pumped he got that fight, but I will not be able to make that.
Yeah, it's super cold, so I don't blame you.
I told you I just started comedy. I'm not making the big bucks yet, so I can't be traveling up there to watch the fights.
Yeah. Do you feel like you're getting better? Like, have you noticed, vast improvements from say May to now? Do you feel like when you do your prep, maybe even if it's one night before and then you go on stage, walk off stage, a little while later, do you feel like have you noticed improvements?
What I have noticed is that I'm a lot more relaxed, a lot more chilled out and stuff like that. And when I deliver everything, it seems more fluent. It seems like I don't have to think about things too much. Like I said, the first time I was trying not to forget my stuff, whereas the last time I was just telling the story but thinking about things I should chuck in the middle. But what I did do, and I did the first one without any advice, any help or anything like that. What I have done since then is kind of go and research a little bit on what people do to either find their jokes or how they set them up or the best way to deliver them and stuff like that. And that's kind of helped a little bit, so you kind of just realize, oh, you're putting too much into it. Let's just break it down like this, and then you can come up with the punchlines and everything like that.
Walk me through the preparation. I know you said sometimes you leave it to the last day before, but even in that case, what from the first sort of moment you're starting to plan the your material and what you're going to do your performance for I think that's a good word. And then so from the beginning to the end to when you're ready to go the next day, the next night, what does preparation look like for you?
So I remember the very first time I had to do 5 minutes. That was all I have to do. So it's just getting on stage, and then you got to grab everyone's attention. So for me, it was like, let's do something where one, I can get the audience's attention with a joke. So I came out straight away with, I think it was with one of the Trump jokes. Or I said, I was in San Diego and I tried surfing, and I got hit with a Trump water. Because it slapped me in the face and sent me straight back to the beach. And that kind of warmed everyone up. But the way I think about them is like, what's relevant in today? And I don't have a TV, so I don't watch I hate the news. The news is the dumbest thing ever. I mean, it just tells you how many people died that day. It's not exciting for me at all. So I don't watch the news too much. So it's kind of hard to pull from that. But talking about myself, so I talk about my brother a lot because he doesn't have a job and he's just not motivated to do anything. So he's kind of like, I can make fun of him. And people can relate because they've got that one sibling or that nephew or that person they know that just has a lot of potential but just doesn't use it. So then I kind of pick a few things I can say about him in a way. And these are things that I'll say to my friends or whatever, but then I'll just put it in a story. So I kind of think of stuff like that. And the way I kind of remember it all is I'll write it down. And while I'm writing stuff, I can think of other things to say, or it gives me time to think about what would be a good punchline. Then I voice record it. So I do my performance basically in front of the mirror. Actually, I try to do it in front of the mirror, get caught away, something like that. And then you ruin your skit. So I do it. And I time it, make sure it's about 5 minutes. And then, I'll just listen to it, and I'll listen to it in the car. And I usually I do when I do my driving, I'll do my skit in the car. So that's basically the prep of it. And like I said, usually it's been last minute, but I got these ones in pretty good and remembered everything.
As far as though just even coming up with the jokes, like it certainly takes a talent that not everybody has. Like only a very small percentage of the world's population, I would say, has what it takes to go up there, make a crowd laugh, and be successful in the stand-up world. When you're writing your material, does it just come easy because you have all these life experience? You have your brother, you can go off him and make certain jokes about, like, even just making, like, even for me, like, if you were to give me a scenario, like a situation, and maybe I had that, your brother or whatever, and he didn't do much, and even still though, like, I would struggle, I think, to come up with jokes. Like, maybe it's a funny story, but how do you sort of get that last line? What is that difficult, or does it just come naturally for you?
Well, I think there's a lot of stuff that I'll say, and it helps having someone like Tuss here that I live with, and my girlfriend's also got a great sense of humor, so we can just have normal conversations, and I can say something completely different, but it's funny because it's something you don't expect. And comedy is all about misdirection. So I can tell you 80% of the story, then change the ending. So let me think of a good example. I mean, you can do things structured, like, say, journalism, for example. You could write down all the things that you know about journalism and then kind of think of, things to say about them. Or I love journalism because, I don't know. I don't know much of, what I mean? So you could say something like, if I talked about you, like, Nick wanted to be a journalism because he liked holding something that close to his mouth. It's like just something like that you can think about. So anyway,
you have to be creative. You have to be creative. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Because again, not everybody can do this. Like, even just coming up with a small joke. Not very few people, I think, can't have that ability almost.
Yeah.
It's very weird because
it's
it
fine.
seems like it'd be so easy, but then you try and do it yourself, and it's like, hey, I could never do this.
Well, growing up in Australia, everyone's everyone you talk to, all my mates is just everything's a backhanded insult or compliment in a way. So you'd end up learning from it, and that's the thing. Like, someone's going to give you shit about something, and you have to give them shit back. You don't get upset about it, because if you get upset, then everyone makes fun of you for it, and you get more upset, and you just lose that battle. So you got to say something intelligent and cunning enough to stop them from coming up with a comeback. And if you do, you win. And I think that's where it came from. I had a bunch of funny friends that everything was just back and forth. And you learn to have a sharp tongue and come up with stuff pretty quickly. So anyway,
I guess if that's the day to day, that would certainly help.
Yeah, exactly. But as soon as I moved to the UK, it dimmed down a little bit. In the US, no one does it. They'll say different, like the humor is a little bit different in the States. I think Canada is more, part of the Commonwealth. So, we have the same kind of thoughts on comedy, I think. But, America's a little bit different. It's a little bit more animated. I like a little bit more slapstick comedy, I think. But, maybe some of the jokes go over the heads of people here. Who knows?
Yeah. What is the most difficult part of it, have you found?
Well, I've had it quite easy, because I just tell my auntie I'll do 5 minutes. Whereas I don't have to. And my auntie said, "Do you want to do this? Do you want to do this seriously?" I said, I'm at a point in my life where if financially things make sense, like, I'm not going to spend my Friday, Saturday, Sunday nights begging people to be on their show, or driving somewhere to do a show for $20 and losing time and money. That just doesn't make sense to me. So if I can do something where I'm getting paid for it and getting paid decently, then yeah, I'll chase the dream, and I'll make it really serious. Right now I have so much stuff on my plate, and business ideas and business that I want to get cracking by the end of the year. That the comedy's there, and I'm writing jokes and everything like that. And if something comes up, then I can perform. But I'm not chasing. I'm not doing anything like that. I think for the most part, I mean, we go to a couple open mic nights and stuff like that, or go to these improv classes like we're doing tonight. But I don't think anything's been difficult just because I haven't been out grinding. Like, I'm not just, like fighting. You have to get up at crack of dawn and do your cardio and do this and do this to be successful. And it's something I'll continue to do because I enjoy it, but I'm not like grinding to get on every show, where I know some comics drive all over California to go to show here, show there, show here. But if I got to a point where I could travel, like, Adam Hunter does it a lot. He travels where the fights are. Joe Rogan does it, where he travels to where the fights are and does a gig. Those guys, especially Adam Hunter, he's a grinder. And that's his life. I mean, he's a good comic.
For you, it's sort of like if an opportunity presents itself, it's a viable option. You don't have to pay out of your pocket too much or whatever. It seems like you'll take it, but as you said, you're not chasing. Sort of, it's not like your one dream.
Yeah, no, not at all. And I'm one of those guys that, like, I performed in front of 30 to 50 people. I'd rather perform in front of 500 to 1,000. The bigger the better for me. Like, I would have no problem getting in front of a packed house somewhere. No problem at all. And in fact, I'd probably do better than I would at a small show. So I just got to grind for it.
I find that interesting that you'd feel a bit more comfortable. Is it that you'd be more comfortable in front of a bigger crowd, or is that it's just you get more money, and that's it's a bigger show? You of course want to go as far as you can. But does that come down to comfort? Like, would you be more comfortable in front of a larger crowd than 30 to 50 people?
Yeah, 100%. Like I said, if I could walk out at a massive theater where they have a couple thousand people, 5,000 people or whatever, that would be awesome, because then you don't go from just being a comic at a brewery.
Are you there?
Yep.
Your camera died, but I can hear you.
Okay, cool. It might be coming back on. There we go.
There.
So when I get in front of the group of people at a brewery, it's like going to entertain these couple of people. But if I'm in front of thousands, now you're an entertainer and you got to entertain these people. And I think I'd do a lot better at that than I would. I 100% know I would, actually, to be honest. To address a big crowd like that. So if I could do that next week, 100% I'd do it.
I found that really interesting, just because, like, for me, it's funny that we're talking about this, because I did a presentation, for a project in school earlier this afternoon, and the class I was doing it in is super small compared to regular classrooms. I think, like, the whole class is 14 people. And for me, if I was to get up in front of a class and talk for 10 minutes about whatever, it would be way easier in front of 14 people than, say, like a larger class, maybe 30, 35 people. But I think once you reach a point, like if you're in front of 1,000 people where that, I feel like the scary part about performing or speaking in front of like a small crowd is you can sort of see their reactions. And like even today, I'm talking in front of the class and see a few people smile, and you wonder inside of your head, are they laughing at me, or they're talking among themselves, like what's that about? Where you don't see that when you're talking in front of, say, 1,000 people. You see blank faces, really.
Yeah, and you can. I mean, I haven't done it yet, so it's hard to judge. But I just think I'd thrive in that environment. Like when you got that many people watching you, you don't have any other choice but to perform and to entertain them. It's kind of similar with fighting. Like I enjoyed fighting in front of a lot of people. And I've done Olympic trials where there was the coach watching and referees, and that was it. Yeah, you got to perform because it's Olympic trials, but when there's a bunch of people watching, I'm going up and look like an idiot in front of all these people. And plus, when I was young, I was like, there's a lot of hot chicks in here. If you perform really well, they're all yours, So you gotta put those motivations in for yourself.
It's not just the prize money that you get at then. There's some other prizes.
Yeah, you get the late night party.
What's the feedback been like? Sorry, go ahead if you had something else to add.
No, go ahead.
I was just going to say, what's the feedback been like from Team Alpha Male fighters? I know you mentioned Cynthia Calvillo has been out to one of your shows. Danny Castillo, we know the story there. The feedback from them, do they go, other than, Calvillo and Castillo, have you had Team Alpha Male fighters go to every one of your 4 shows? Are they not very invested? Do they, what's sort of that like?
No, because obviously being in San Diego, Castillo was just there because she was watching my mate's wife works for him, and she was competing in the CrossFit Games. So they were down there anyway, so I just told them to come along. And then Cynthia and Tuss were actually with me, staying with my auntie after I did the Contenders show as a coach, and then Cynthia and Tuss just want to get out of town, so we just hung out in San Diego. And they came. And I like when people come because I can roast them and do something for them, which is good. But a lot of the guys are going, yeah, let us know when there's a show in SAC and we'll come watch. So
right.
I think I went to the Punchline. One of the girls who she's one of the trainers at the gym. Her husband's a comic, and he's pretty good one. I actually saw him the other night. So, no, I haven't done a gig for the boys, and we do an end of the year gig, and I want to roast everyone at the gym. And I want to roast Faber big time, but Faber's going to be hard to roast if I just roast him. So I've got something kind of planned if it does go down. And I told Adam Hunter, I said, you got to come up and help me roast these guys because he's good. But I got an idea. I can't let it go on air because it'd have to be a secret.
Don't want to spoil it. Yeah.
Don't want to spoil it. But it'd be pretty funny. I could imagine this would be the best way to get him. And I actually thought about it, and I just go, it's going to be funny, so I have to do it that way. But I couldn't just be myself. I have to be someone else. That's the key.
Interesting. I don't want you to spoil it, but why is it difficult to roast the California Kid?
He does stuff that we within the team know about, and it's nothing like he doesn't really do much. He doesn't really do much wrong. He's a great guy. He's a UFC Hall of Famer. He's been there from the beginning. There's not really much you can make fun of his career about, because he's had a pretty good career. And I feel like making fun of people's losses just isn't something I do. You got to make fun of, when they've done something good. So the way I plan to roast him is different from that. I don't have to pick him, I can pick on kind of the way that he is, almost in a way. So I think that's the way around it. Faber doesn't take a joke very good too, so I couldn't imagine.
Don't want to piss him off too much.
I know. Yeah, I make fun of him in front to his face, and he'll just give you, you know.
That reminds me of when Drunk AC made his debut on Team Alpha Male's podcast, Stud Show Radio. It was, I believe, episode 99, and it was, I think, Justin Buckles, you, and Faber, and you got a little tipsy, and were doing some things Faber wasn't too fond of.
Mate, 100,000 views, over 100,000 views on YouTube, still to date, the highest rated show.
I would have thought that. Well, I remember watching that, and I think I haven't seen all of them, and there's too many to remember, but that definitely stands out as one of the top 3, top 2 maybe. The other one would be earlier on, I guess, the what they call the frat boy episode.
Cody and Lance.
Yes, and Holdsworth too.
Oh yeah, that's right.
You weren't there though. You missed out on the fun.
No, I heard all about it though. I must have been busy or something like that, but I heard about it, and I think that's when they changed the name from Team Alpha Male Radio to Stud Show Radio, because it got a little wild, I think.
I would imagine that's probably number 2 as far as the ratings go.
Yeah, I think it's pretty good. You know, the best part about that, and I don't really remember the end of that Stud Show Radio thing because I had 2 bottles of wine, red wine. We were back at Faber's house afterwards, and I'm doing handstands for some reason right over his new white carpet. So I think he was a little bit nervous that I might throw up all the red wine all over it, but strong. Went to work 5 a.m. the next day.
I find it hilarious that show you were getting drunk off of red wine, just because you don't hear of that too often. And maybe is that more common? I mean, it seems like wine is like you're at a formal dinner, or sort of after the beers, and it's to almost calm yourself. I mean, I don't drink alcohol, so who am I to say anything? But I don't know. It seems like when you hear about someone getting really hammered, it's definitely either on hard liquor or beer, not wine.
Well, I mean, it takes me a lot to get drunk. And I mean, I can get a little tipsy, but to get drunk, it takes me a little bit. So I thought 2 bottles of wine would do good. You got to remember, bottles of wine are 12-14%. So
yeah, I guess that's
beer
a good
is only
point.
6. So I got to
I mean, I guess
3 times as much beer.
Yeah, the thing is, I was sort of forgot this. Like, the average person might have 2 glasses of wine. If you have 2 bottles, okay, that might make an impact.
Yeah, 2 bottles is a solid night out.
Yeah, for sure. So just a couple more things before we wrap this up. You talked about right now, comedy is a side gig, not much more than that. You're doing it at the local, places, not a huge crowd. And you talked about how this could go farther. You could make it big, so to speak, and it could turn into a lot more than what it is right now. But you're not chasing it. That's not like, the one main goal of your life. Gun to your head though, like, do you see this being bigger than it is right now? Like, do you think, once you get other things, you're working on, I know you got a bunch of business ideas going on, as you mentioned, like, what are the realistically possibilities of comedy, being, you going a step further, maybe too?
I think it's a good possibility because I've seen some horrible comics, and they are, if you look on YouTube at really bad comics, they say stuff, and I just go, that isn't funny. So why would you say that in front of a group of people? And some people just want to do comedy, and they're fine with being on stage, but they just don't have a sense of humor. So I think when people do comedy as well, they think, like, I haven't really sworn on stage. I've said shit or maybe ass or something like that. But and I feel like a lot of people say it because they think it's funny, but some people overuse it, and it just becomes kind of vulgar, and it doesn't really make sense, and they're using that as kind of the ace card, which isn't really an ace card. It just kind of becomes annoying after a while. So I feel like after the first 4 shows I've done, I haven't bombed. They've all been well. I've learned a lot from them, that if I continue to do it, for me, like I know I can be successful at certain things. Like I knew I'd be a successful fighter. That's why I did Taekwondo for so long. I did 2 Olympic teams for 2 different countries. I think, the only man I know to represent 3 different countries at world-class level. So, but other than that, it's exciting. It's fun. And like I said, if you put me in a big show next weekend, I would love it. That would be awesome. So it's just one, getting a good for the jokes and stuff like that. And I kind of find it therapeutic to write about things. Actually, for the most part, I spend a lot of my time at the gym these days, and managing that, which is a handful. And I'm not supposed to be there part time, so I still have my own business to run. But yeah, I like comedy, and I think I'll do it locally and get involved a little bit more. So who knows where it'll go? But I enjoy it. I enjoy doing it, and if it's the next chapter of my life, then I'll take it on full speed.
Would you ever consider going on trying out for something like America's Got Talent, or there are smaller but still fairly popular comedy shows, and I'm trying to think of the names. There's a bunch of
the last comic standing.
Yeah. Would you like to do something like that in the future?
Possibly. I know that my auntie does a bunch of competitions. It's like stand-up competitions, but what she's told me from it, the people that judge them, they put their mates in them so their mates win, and they vote for their mates, and then the mates have that credibility to go into the big shows because they've won all these contests. So she's done a bunch of contests, and she's never won any. And she basically found out from the industry, because my auntie's pretty smart. She says basically the people put on the contest, and they get, people that they like. Out of the Ultimate Fighter, I'd get all the guys from Team Alpha Male to do it, and I'd pick those guys. Kind of like McGregor and Faber's teams. McGregor had great guys, and Faber didn't have many, and that was because they wanted McGregor to win that show. So, it's kind of similar with comedy, I think. So. Maybe. I mean, the thing I like about doing the comedy contest is that everyone's there for a laugh. So you're going to have a qualified group of people that understand humor.
And one thing about the specific material you have, it seems that you've posted a few clips on Instagram, and from this, from what I've seen, and I would imagine this is the case. It's mostly just straight jokes. But I know some comedians, like there was one. On the last season of America's Got Talent, which I watch once in a while, he finished in the top 10. He was really good and really funny. But it's not that his actual jokes and his straight material as far as the words go were like hilarious, but he used different actions where it would actually kind of it added a lot. Is that something you've done? Is that sort of your style? Like every comedian has their own style, but is that something you would ever do, body movement and make that a bigger part of your performance?
Yeah, I just started to this last skit. I did a little bit of acting, to use my body a little bit, and it's odd doing it on a small stage like that.
Right.
Like I say, on a big stage, now you're a performer, you're an artist, and you have to exaggerate everything. As I acted when I was young, and when you're on camera, you don't have to act as much as when you're on stage. When you're on stage, you have to, big gestures, everything like that. So I feel like you could. I feel like I mimic people pretty well, and I can do a few funny actions. So I think it'll grow into some of that, but I'm not going to be like a slapstick type guy, but right. It'll be relevant to the joke or the action.
Interesting. Well, Adam, that is pretty much all I got. If there's anything else you'd like to say, if I didn't ask you, a certain question you were maybe expecting, go for it. But otherwise, thank you very much for coming on episode 4 of Beyond Combat. I appreciate it. This was a lot of fun. Let everybody know where they can find you on social media. Any plugs, anything you'd like to shout outs, whatever. The floor is yours.
On Instagram, Adam, are you still with me?
There you go. Yep.
Sorry, my camera keeps my battery keeps getting low. Adam _Corrigan is me on Instagram, and on Facebook I'm Adam Corrigan. I'm not on Facebook too much anymore. I like Instagram. There's no drama. It's just pictures and videos.
Could be drama. Who knows?
Yeah, it could be a little bit of drama. Who knows?
Everything can be drama.
Yeah, that's it.
Alrighty. Well, thanks again. This was a lot of fun, as I said, and I'm sure we'll talk again sooner than when compared to when we last spoke back in July of last year. It had been over a year, and hopefully we'll talk before that. Thank you all for watching. If you're watching live on YouTube or watching the replay later on, we really do appreciate you guys tuning in, and hope you guys enjoyed. For me, you can check me out on Twitter at Nick Baldwin MMA. You can find all of my MMA writing over at bloodyelbow.com. You can find my other shows, The MMA Circus and Before the Battle, here on this YouTube channel. The MMA Circus is also on other podcasting platforms as well as bloodyelbow.com. That is pretty much all I got. Thank you all for watching. Thank you, Adam, for the time. We appreciate it, and we're out of here.